Welcome to Industry Talks podcast where we talk about the industry, which is all things industrial. Today is a little bit, I guess you could say, off topic, but moving towards on topic, which is kind of a cool thing, which I'm actually really looking forward to talking to you about this stuff. So my name is Michael Bates. This is Jordan Ledwine. I'm going to kind of let you introduce yourself, kind of what you do, your day job, I guess you could say, and like kind of why you're here, I guess you could say.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. So I guess my day job would be considered, I'm with a company called Sandler. So for those of you that don't know Sandler is a sales and management training and coaching program. We have over 200 offices around the world, and we basically help salespeople have a proven process to kind of follow. So we always say that no one grew up dreaming to become a salesperson. No one went to school. Most of us didn't go to school to become salespeople, but it's the most common profession in the world. So we try and help give people a process and the training that it kind of takes to succeed, rather than it taking 30 years to figure out how not to do it and figuring out how to do it that way. So with that, maybe about a year ago, Sandler kind of started to purchase different technologies and incorporate different partnerships with some different AI tools. So that was my first kind of taste into AI, and the world of AI. And since then, I kind of dove headfirst into it. Everyone saw ChatGPT come out, and if they didn't see it at that time, they've heard about it since then,
now,
right?
Yeah, it's everywhere now.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the week after ChatGPT came out, I was like, okay, it's
This
time.
is happening.
It's time to dive into this niche here. So I created just a little newsletter on LinkedIn called the AI for the AI Sales Guy.
Yeah.
And just started putting out content on there, kind of sharing the things that I was learning, because I thought it was really cool and I thought other people could benefit from it. And that's turned into a few different webinars and podcasts and some different opportunities to
kind of be this AI guy. Yeah. And that's what, I get AI, but I don't. I feel like that's probably most of the population, is they know what AI is, but then again, they also don't know what AI is.
Yeah.
They think they know what AI is because they hear about like artificial intelligence, but I don't think people really realize what it is, especially on the business side of things, what it's going to turn into, because it's not going to stop.
I don't think so.
I don't think it's going to go away. If anything, it's going to get more prominent.
Yeah, and we've seen that.
That's kind of what we're going to get into, but I guess let's just go ahead. We're already in it, so let's just dive into it. So the AI in sales, I guess you can kind of briefly say or talk about ways that you've seen AI in sales. What are some ways you're seeing sales guys use AI today, now?
Yeah.
Because we spoke about 2 months ago, and from even a 2-month span, it's way different than it was 2 months ago.
It's advancing very rapidly.
Yeah.
And before I do that, I want to just kind of break down AI in case people don't
Yeah,
really know
that's
exactly
probably
what
good.
it
Yeah,
is.
do
So AI being artificial intelligence, essentially think of a computer that can kind of do things that it would typically require human intelligence to do, such as speech recognition, making decisions, recognizing patterns. So for people who are like, I've never used AI, I don't know what it is, have you ever used Siri?
Yeah.
Have you ever used Amazon Alexa?
Yeah.
Even when you're texting, and you're texting and the next word comes up as a recommendation, I mean, that's AI recommending the next best word. So, it's essentially just a computer that's finding patterns and making recommendations based on the patterns that it's recognizing. So from there's a lot of different applications across tons of industries. I think the biggest one it's hit is marketing and content generation. We see a ton of just AI content, and it's become a huge buzzword. Just all these pieces of software adding AI tools or ChatGPT into their software.
Yep.
But I think using it for sales is there's a very specific area that's being developed right now, and it's kind of hard to exactly figure out what that means for each sales reps as an individual, because someone who's selling SEO or some sort of SaaS product is going to do it way differently or use AI way differently than someone who's selling a valve or a lift or something like that.
Yeah, industrial stuff, yeah.
So you have to understand, I think, what is AI? What are the things that it can do and help with? And then you can start to understand the best way to use it for your specific job and your specific life.
Yes.
Overall.
Yeah, so that's what I've gotten on ChatGPT, and I've kind of messed around with it, and draft me an email to a prospect that wants I want to sell X to or something, and then it
Mhm.
would spit out an email draft and say like, dear blank, blah 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 blah.
Yep.
So that's like I think the most obvious way a sales guy could use it. But you were even talking about like entering things into like CRMs or like even you said that your brother does paving and that type of world, like estimating and things like that. So like, I guess where do you see AI heading? Like are people need to be worried about AI, or do they need to? A lot of people are worried about AI. I
Mhm.
guess you could say.
Yep.
Is it going to take my job? Is it going to do my job? So, like, as a salesperson or someone in our world, what do you think AI is going to turn into, say, in the next 5 years?
Hmm.
Is that
Not
a-
sure.
is-
5 years is a long time. I
Like-
mean, especially with how fast it's advancing. I mean, I think I'll say this. I think it's good to be aware of what's happening with AI. I think it's okay to be concerned about it, but I think the real concern is if you know nothing about it and you're just kind of not interested
In
in learning
denial.
about it.
Yeah.
Kind of. And I know that's easy to say from a millennial standpoint,
Yeah, right.
being interested in this type of stuff, but we have a saying that we've said on different webinars that we've held for AI for Sandler, and it's AI tools are not going to replace salespeople, but salespeople who understand how to use AI are going to replace those who don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you have a salesperson who can get 3 times the amount of work done because they know how to incorporate AI into their job, and they're up against someone who doesn't understand how to do that, I mean, who's going to be more valuable to a company?
Exactly.
And that goes across any industry. So I think, you mentioned ChatGPT, and that's a great place to start. If you're going to start anywhere with AI, I mean, that's the most common place to start. But like you kind of were mentioning, saying ChatGPT is AI is like saying California is the United States.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that might be the most popular, most well-known, or most
Yeah.
populated, but there's a lot of different kinds of AI that you can use for selling.
That's
It's
kind of my
finding the
next
right
question.
mix.
Someone who doesn't know anything about AI, hypothetically,
Mm-hmm.
how would you recommend someone to like start to educate themselves? Would it be where can you go find? I mean, if you type in AI websites on Google, there's like you can't tell if one's going to be a scam or spam. You can't tell. So how would someone find the best place to go to start to learn about this stuff? If I was going to go tell
good
my VP
question.
of sales, like, hey man, go start looking at this stuff because I think this could be beneficial for our company, where would I tell them to even look?
I think podcasts like this are
Yeah.
important, or other industry leaders who are kind of running some of these AI companies out there. I think LinkedIn is
Okay.
a great avenue. I'm on LinkedIn all the time, and I have a different network of AI influencers, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call them, and just people who focus on AI in specific niches, whether that's marketing or sales or operations or things like that. So I think just following the conversation right now and being aware of what's happening and staying up to date with it is important. I mean, I look at it sometimes hours every day, and I have a hard time keeping up. So it's
Yeah.
not easy to
It's
stay
not
up
easy.
to date with everything happening right
So
now.
if I want to go, you think ChatGPT is the best place to kind of start and just start playing with it, typing stuff in, seeing what it can do, what it can't do. Is there any like sales specific things that you know of?
Yes.
Is AI normally free or no?
Um,
Or that
It can be. So because it's so early on, I think a lot of tools are free or have some free version of it because they want people to kind of experience it before they purchase
Yeah.
anything. So like ChatGPT you can use for free. Another version of ChatGPT, which is called Bing Chat, right? So you know Microsoft Bing.
yeah.
No one's used Bing for
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Well, they do now because it has ChatGPT built into it, right? So Microsoft invested billions into OpenAI. They took the GPT-4 model and were able to apply it to Bing Chat. So now what they can do, ChatGPT isn't able to search the internet.
Mhm.
It can with a plugin, but you're gonna have to pay for it and have a plugin and all that. But ChatGPT is trained on information up to 2021, the end of 2021.
Okay.
So if you're looking for anything current, it's not going to be able to supply that information.
Yeah.
So if you want to do research on a company, you're going to want to use Bing Chat because it's going to use that same intelligence as ChatGPT, but it's going to be able to search the web. So when I do research on a company, so let's say I'm prospecting or a new lead comes in, that's the first thing I'll do is do research, right? So I'll put their company name or maybe their industry into Bing Chat and say, help me understand what's going on in this industry. Give me any articles that are related to company name. Help me understand the 5 challenges that this industry may be facing as it relates to what I sell, right? So I'll use Bing Chat for research, and then I'll actually use ChatGPT to create emails or have a conversation, because it's going to be a lot better at long form content or having a longer conversation.
That's interesting.
So that's
Bing
mm-hmm.
is a good one
for research.
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of all of this is like, I could give you 10 of the best prompts that are going to make you $10,000 in 5 days or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But they're different for everyone. And understanding which tools to use and when to use the tools is really the key thing here. Understanding how it fits together.
That's what I think most people are going to have to just figure out is, okay, here's my day. This is what my day looks like. How can I incorporate this into my life to make my life easier?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, like trying to figure out, that's what I think I'm trying to do is how can I use AI in my life to help me?
Yeah.
Because it might be different than how it helps you. I think it's kind of a preference thing.
Well, it is, and it has to do with, what your responsibilities are for your job, right? So for me, I do a ton of virtual calls. Like 95% of my meetings are virtual.
Yeah.
So I now have an AI tool that hops into my meeting with me. It shows up as a different box. So the R2 heads in that box. And it says, Jordan's Fathom Note Taker is recording. And it will record the entire call. It'll transcribe the entire call. It'll push the entire thing into my CRM. And then it gives me a 5 to 10 point summary, AI generated summary of the key talking points. So
that's insane to me.
It's crazy. I haven't taken notes on a virtual call in a year because of this tool, and I'll literally just copy and paste and send the summary as the
meeting
follow-up.
Notes?
Yeah. And people love it. People love to be able to see what they said. It's a cool conversation point. But for me, I can go back to a meeting that I had 2 weeks ago, and quickly go through the key points and say, okay, what were the things they were struggling with that they talked about? What were the things that they wanted to see? And then I can go into my new meeting or our second
How did you
meeting.
get that what'd you call it? The Phantom?
Yeah, it's called Fathom.
Fathom? So did you download that?
Yep, I downloaded it. So Fathom is actually a free tool that you can use this with Zoom. There's other ones like Otter or Aviom, or there's a bunch of different tools depending on which software you're using. Some are going to cost a little bit of money, some won't. It's just about finding the right fit.
That is nuts, because I have a couple customers that are out of the state, and we do a lot of Zoom stuff. And we had one, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago or something, and I was with another guy with my company. And the reason we did that is because we were like, one person needs to be jotting down what's going on while the other one's engaging in conversation.
Yep.
Because I don't want to be sitting there talking to somebody like as they're talking, just like writing constantly. Because then I'm thinking about what I'm writing and not what they're saying, and you miss something. So that's something that I would use.
I use it I don't know how I would live without it at this point. And that's kind of where it's getting to, is I'm getting all these tools incorporated in my process. I'm like, I don't know how I did this without this before.
That is crazy.
It's kind of like when we first got the computer, and people were like, so there's a funny story I heard relating to Newsweek, which is a magazine, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was in 1995 or 1997. They basically said, and I'm going to paraphrase, but the internet's a fad. It's not going to stick around for long. No one's going to really go onto their computer to read articles.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. And then 12 years after they sent that article, they became a fully online publication.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, these things just become part of our lives very quickly. And I think when it comes to AI, what we're going to start to see is our tools like Microsoft Office. Office is going to start to have AI assistants to help you write emails or start to help you summarize a draft of all of your emails. I mean, there's already Microsoft Viva and some of these assistants that will say, here's emails that you haven't responded to that someone asked a question.
Yeah.
Little things like that, and it starts getting smarter.
Snap, I forgot to email this guy back. Or like it kind of does that. I saw something else that was like an Excel thing.
Yep.
It does something with your Excel, like it'll like analyze all the stuff in the Excel sheet and like break down, like you can ask it like, give me the total of column C or something, and it like just shoots it out to you.
I think that's native in Excel. I'm pretty sure they've started to already incorporate AI into Excel. Because it's Microsoft again, right?
Yeah.
So, and they got tools like PowerPoint.
So those big players are already. AI's been around longer than what people think it has.
Yes.
I read that recently. Like people who are scared of AI, we've been using AI for a very long time.
Even think of Siri. Siri is what I like to pull it back to because so many people are familiar with it.
Yeah.
You asked for directions or used, some sort of voice control.
Siri, start a timer for 10 minutes. Or Siri, you can ask it anything.
Mm-hmm. Most
does
things.
That pull to that comes from the internet?
Um,
Do you
Not
know?
from the internet. I think Siri is its own language model, but you can ask Siri to search the internet, right?
Yeah.
So you can say, "Hey Siri, can you search the internet for this?" And it's basically just gonna put what you said
Into Safari or whatever.
Safari,
Yeah.
right? So it's not as intelligent as something like a Chat GPT, but
It's still AI.
it could be very
Yeah.
soon. You know, I'm still waiting for Apple to make their AI move because they haven't made one yet.
Apple, it's probably coming.
They're waiting for the next iPhone release, so it's a reason to make everyone buy the new one.
That's
So
probably they're definitely coming. I know Microsoft has been a big. I've heard Microsoft a lot.
yeah,
Who else, is there any?
Google's in the conversation. They have Google Bard,
Oh,
which
Bard.
is
Yep.
similar to Bing Chat. It's not. I don't use it that much. It's not
Bing's
as
better.
good for what I use it
Yeah.
for, but it has some cool outputs. So my recommendation is for people to just dabble around. You know, depending on what you're doing, you might find that Google Bard is better than Microsoft Bing for what
Yeah.
you do or Bing Chat. So
Yeah.
I think you just got to try some stuff out, see what you like.
Trial and
see what you don't
error, just
like.
mess around with it. Yeah, because if you get on ChatGPT, it's just fun to. I was sitting next to a guy on an airplane coming back from Chicago. Just randomly sat next to him, started talking to him, and he was owned a capital, like an investment banker basically, but he has his own firm.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking. First thing he started talking about was like, "You into AI?" I was like, the first thing he said, and we started talking. He's like, "If you're not using AI now, you need to start," because he uses it. I don't know how he uses it on an investment banking side of things, but he said he uses it all the time. And
Mhm.
some of the businesses that he invests in, there was one very new startup, some helicopter something, and he said that guy used AI for like his business model, and like basically how to birth this company. AI was probably 80% of the work.
Yep.
He had the idea, and AI like kind of honed it in for him.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's kind of what AI is getting to, right? So you asked a question earlier of should people be worried about being replaced by AI? And I don't think AI is necessarily here to replace us right now. I think it's used to supplement what we do. So I always say, you know, combine artificial intelligence with human intelligence,
Yeah.
right? So you've probably said something in ChatGPT or put a prompt in and gotten a response, and you're like, I'm not sending that. There's
Yeah.
no way. That's awful. Well,
Yeah.
as a human, you got to know the context, the situation, and it's kind of comes back to, you know, the better input you feed to ChatGPT, the better output you're going to get.
Correct.
So if you say, hey, I want to send an email to this position at this company, he manages this many sales reps, and he struggles with X, Y, and Z, you know,
And
that's
then
going to
let
be a
it-
much better email.
Then just like give me an email to try to get a meeting.
Right, yeah. Don't say, send my prospect a cold email, draft a sample.
Yeah,
or
it'll just
something.
be like, hey, you want to have a meeting? Yeah,
Yeah.
and it would be like very bland and broad. And I've even done stuff like messing around, like write a song in the style of Morgan Wallen about cats that like to eat M&Ms, and it'll like come up with a full song.
Yep.
You can like put anything in that thing, and it'll like shoot it right back out. It's crazy.
And you could literally, you could take Morgan Wallen's voice and probably use AI to recreate it.
That's
and you
the
could
that's
put it in
the
there
other
and create
thing
a new
that
song.
you hear. I guess this is another point. You know, you hear about. My mom was telling me about this. Like, you got to be careful. Like, we need to make a code word because I've heard about scam people calling and using your voice for like ransom money or like all this craziness. So like,
Yep.
I guess there is anything there's a positive, somebody's gonna find a way to make it negative.
Yeah, I mean, just like anything
It's
else,
just
right?
anything else, I mean.
I was even talking to a group of IT professionals who that was their main concern was how do we help our clients kind of become protected because the scammers, when they start using AI,
It's-
the language is going to be indistinguishable from someone who you might normally get an email from.
Yeah, I have a buddy, you know him, but I don't know what to say. But he sends these little things, and it's like the president's talking about like in
Yep.
an Xbox Live
Yep,
type
I've
of
seen
thing.
them. I've seen them.
They're very funny, but
They're
they're
hilarious.
you cannot. They literally sound like they're the presidents.
They're indistinguishable.
Yes, you
Yeah.
cannot tell the difference.
I mean,
So that stuff's kind of crazy.
there's programs out there where all you need is an hour of someone talking to recreate their voice.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's
I
definitely.
heard a song by Drake that I was like, this. I would never have known.
Mm-hmm.
This song is. I wonder if anybody will ever be able to like make money off of making original music with AI, but it's not really original music.
There's a lot of talks going on right now from a legal standpoint on kind of the regulations. I know the UK right now is pushing some regulations. The US is working on, you know, they're meeting with the different owners of these companies to try to figure out how they do this responsibly and ethically, because that is the concern is like who manages this data, right?
Yeah.
Like who decides the bias or what is biased or what isn't biased. So,
Yeah.
you know, there is a lot to kind of play out there, and we'll see what happens with all that. So that is a good point to make, though. When it comes to ChatGPT, you're helping train it essentially. It's learning from you, so be aware of that, and don't be putting any financial information in there, anything that you wouldn't want to share with someone else, because at this point we're not really sure how.
My credit card number is blah blah blah.
Yeah. Wouldn't recommend that one.
Help me get out of credit card debt. Here's my information, and that's and I've used this made up random things, like how do you write a business plan for a golf club company.
Yeah.
Or like, and it'll give you everything. Or like, how do you become successful in podcasting? Or like, what can you do and it'll shoot you out information. So it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Do you think it's moving too quick? Because you hear like, didn't Elon say something about like this is going too quick? Like we need to slow this thing down.
Well, the thing is, how do you slow it down, right?
Yeah. It's like a snowball. Once it starts rolling, I don't know if there's really much you can do to.
Well, we could slow it down here in the United States, but I don't know that everyone across the world is going to slow down the AI revolution or whatever you want to call it. So, it is going faster than any technology before it, a lot faster, and that's kind of the concern. But the question is, even if you wanted to slow it down, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Because kind of the saying goes, the cat's out of the bag at this point.
Yeah. People know about it now.
Yeah.
Like on my Twitter feed, I feel like it's like every third tweet's like AI, something about AI.
It's getting annoying.
AI's doing this. AI's doing this. If you're not using the AI, you're dumb. Like it's just like it's almost like it's all I hear about now.
Yeah, and I'm claimed to be the AI sales guy. And I'm getting annoyed with all the clickbaity titles, and it's just they're trying to play off the hype of the word right now. I think
AI because it's like a buzzword.
It's a total buzzword, and it will be for a little while, and then I think it'll get saturated, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah.
But, so I think kind of back to your point too, and how to use it for selling. So I think ChatGPT is a great place to start, and there's some best practices you want to follow when using ChatGPT or any conversational AI tool like Bing Chat or something. So you want to be as specific as possible and give more context. The better input, the better output you'll get.
Yeah.
If you can assign it a role. So I always tell ChatGPT to act as someone. So act as my ideal client, act as a expert in marketing and copywriting and help me create a marketing email, whatever you want them to be, have them perform that role. And that's just a little thing that helps kind of
you do that
output.
First, like act like a personal assistant or act like whatever you just said first, and then it'll like respond like, okay, I am that person. Then you start asking it your questions.
Yeah, so I'll say, act as a VP of sales for a $25 million manufacturing company and help me understand the 5 challenges you face as it relates to growing your sales force and increasing your revenue. Something like that, just to give it more context. The more context it has, the better the output will be.
Yeah.
So some things like that, and then also just make sure you have a conversation, right? So like the first output you get probably shouldn't be the one that you use. Tell it to make it shorter or replace this bullet point with that bullet point, or to put your data into a table, or the key to ChatGPT and the benefit of it is it can have an entire conversation with you. So you can take that first thing and tell it to change it 15 times, and it's not going to get annoyed. Whereas if you do have an assistant, after the second time, they're going to be like, I think I changed it enough.
Yeah.
So there is some benefits there.
Yeah. It won't quit on you.
It will not.
It will not.
It's a computer.
What's I guess this is, you kind of already hit this, but I guess you'd say, we've already kind of really said this, but what's one piece of advice you'd give somebody, I guess, that wants to get into this? If you're talking to somebody that said, Jordan, what do I do? What's your first piece of advice that you give them? Just play with it?
Play with it is in the top 3. Yeah, you can follow me on LinkedIn, Jordan Ledwine, the AI Sales Guy newsletter. There's some resources there, but I think for me personally, what I did is I went onto YouTube and I had to go past the clickbaity titles and watch some of them, make sure that I wasn't missing something.
Yeah.
But I just started watching YouTube videos, started listening to podcasts, just started consuming the content that's out there. But do beware, because there's a lot of articles that are explaining AI that are written by AI that aren't accurate. I mean, I've been doing research and trying to put together my own content, and I'm looking at things and I'm like, that's not even true. These articles that are on the top of Google that just are completely inaccurate.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because they started as inaccurate or because AI is simply moving so fast that
It's not
what we
accurate
say
anymore.
today, it's the end
Yeah.
of June. This could be an outdated conversation in 3 months.
Yeah.
So
Which is
the
crazy.
pace of it is insane.
Because when we talked 2 months ago, that is probably outdated to now.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of that will not apply right now.
So it is a crazy thing, and I think it's exciting, it's scary, it's interesting.
Yeah,
That's all of them.
It's all those.
People just don't know what do we think about this? I don't even know how to think about this. Like, I'm excited to use it. It sounds so cool. Then part of me is like, crap, can it, like the scary stuff, like scamming, because you use my voice to go call somebody, so it's just a whole different realm of things, but I think it's going to be here for a long time. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Well, I think a lot of people too are, you're right, not afraid, but scared of, what this could mean for them or their industry. But I think a lot of people also just don't know where to start. And so I'd recommend just kind of taking a look at what you're doing on a daily basis. Like every day, what do you do? And what do you do a lot of that maybe you don't have to do that a computer could do?
Yeah.
Exactly, right? So like manual data entry is a big one. So for me, like I told you, I do all my virtual calls with that tool.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's insane.
I do the same thing with my phone calls. So we use a CRM that has that capability. We use HubSpot. CRM has a partnership with HubSpot. So that's actually another thing I do is help build customized HubSpots for companies that follow their sales process and have some of these tools built into it. So I'll make all my calls through HubSpot, and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to automatically transcribe my entire call. So what I can do is I can have a morning where I have 5 or 10 calls, and I don't pay attention to details all the time. So sometimes I'll be like, was I talking to Michael or was I talking to John about that one thing?
Yeah.
And I can go into my search bar and type in a sentence that I said, and it will pull up the conversation that I said.
Oh, no, yeah, that was Michael. Okay, yeah, I remember that.
So just little things like that to where I don't have to do all this data entry because everything's being logged automatically.
Yeah.
So the automation is also a big piece where it's not necessarily AI. The automation plays in really well too, to where it's like, how can we cut back what we have to do every single day so that we can spend more time in front of our customers, selling our products, selling our services, whatever that might be.
Is AI just like coding, essentially?
What do you mean by that?
So, like, if I had an idea of how AI could be used in my world, but there wasn't anything like that yet, could someone like me go create that?
Potentially, yeah. So AI is essentially it's a combination of coding and just analyzing data.
Yeah.
So AI is only as strong as the data you feed it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's most important. If you don't have any good data, you're not going to get good AI outputs.
Yeah.
Because it's trying to tell you what's happening with the data, right? So, for example, one of the tools that we use is an AI tool that's focused around pipeline management.
Mm-hmm.
So what it can do is basically say, okay, here's the deals that are in your pipeline. After you send the deals through, it's going to have 7 different main areas, and you answer a couple questions in each area. And it's going to say, okay, based on all the deals you win, all the deals you lose, you're winning all the deals when you get all the answers in these areas, but it's not really a factor in these areas. And it can assign a weight to these different deals. So it's like, hey, since you have 4 of the 7 sections, you're at a 68% chance to close. And it can start to assign more data to these. And that's obviously a very simplistic explanation of that tool because it goes a lot more in depth. But it's learning the deals as they go through, and it's learning
crazy.
What wins, what
Stuff
doesn't
is nuts.
win, things like that. Yeah, it's
This stuff is crazy, man. I'll tell you what. And it's because I'm just sitting here thinking, like, things that in my world that I could use it for. And it's like we were talking about before we started rolling, really, is, when you're talking about your brother with the paving estimating, I was thinking, like, well, we do racks, we do conveyor systems, we do anything that goes in a warehouse, distribution center, anything like that. That's what our company does. And obviously forklifts and all things like that. But, like, if you were to say we have 1,000 square feet or even 1,000,000 square feet, and we have 800,000 of usable square feet, what's the best rack layout?
Yep.
Or like, even if you, I guess if the more information you fed it, what's the best rack layout? I guess this might be replacing my job because that's essentially what I do. But like you could just.
We have to be careful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
Actually, never mind. Don't do that.
No, but to your point, you can train the data to help give you outputs. Yeah. And you're actually getting at a really good point is that AI is going to be able to start doing a portion of what we do, right?
Yeah.
And so I was talking to some of my friends at my last company, which is an engineering company focused around steam systems essentially. And as this gets smarter, engineering jobs are going to be at risk because as it starts to use different plugins to be better at math and calculations, it's going to be able to tell us, what the flow rate is through a certain size orifice at a certain pressure differential.
Yeah,
whereas normally we need engineers to kind of help figure that out.
Yeah.
So their key differentiating factor in the future is going to be their ability to use AI to get the right output and to synthesize the information that comes from AI to a customer.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, a customer still may not be able to put that input in and read it out and be like, oh, I know what to do with that information.
Yeah.
It's still going to need some sort of an intermediary or someone in the middle kind
that
of
can
helping.
kind of read it and understand what it's saying and then help guide.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's because even in our world, like the autonomous stuff is coming quick.
Yep.
And I can just eventually see that AI getting integrated with the autonomous stuff to know like, oh, this is now happening, so I'm going to go over here and do this job now.
Exactly.
It's like it's learning the functions of the business, so I can see it getting incorporated in our. It's going to be in the industrial world.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
It's
well, and that's a great analogy you made too. Is the autonomous stuff? You might set a route for it or a certain behavior, and it's going to follow that exact behavior every time. But exactly right.
Once
As
the
you
AI
incorporate
starts coming, it's going to start knowing
learns.
like, oh, this truck pulled in. I need to load this truck first. So instead of doing this job, I'm going to go do this job and then come back to the like. It'll start to be able to process what's going on, which is, again, I guess we'll just end up starting to sell that type of stuff. But and I was telling you before, like I see it in our industry where batteries, for example, used to be like wrenches and guys going in with stuff and fixing these batteries. And I just saw a customer 2 weeks ago. It was a lithium-ion battery, and they plug up with the computer. Like that's how they're like diagnosing everything. That's how they're like. It's like, so the whole world's just getting that way.
Yeah, and I think another thing I keep thinking about is, will AI replace jobs, or is it going to supplement the positions that we can't fill right now anyway, right? Because
Like
I think especially in certain industries, there's not an influx of college grads entering the field, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people are looking around like, how are we going to operate the same way without the same amount of human capital, essentially, right? So I think maybe AI could help supplement some of that.
Yeah.
But who knows? I think 5 years from now, I couldn't even make a prediction on what it's going to look like. Just based on the last 6 months, it's moved a lot faster than I would have thought.
It's going to be crazy. It's exciting to watch. It's exciting to see what it's going to do. But it's like, again, I think everyone's got mixed emotions on it. But I think that it's going to be, like we said, it's not going anywhere. I don't foresee it unless the government says, like, it's banned. You can't use AI, which I don't see that happening.
No, I mean, people are saying that the world's first trillionaire is going to come from an AI endeavor of some sort.
Yeah.
And,
whoever figures it out.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And what all these, executives at these major AI companies are saying is they're talking to 20-year-olds and they're saying, hey, if you don't know what to do right now, go learn AI. Your number one competitive advantage in the future is your ability to use AI and understand how to use AI.
Yeah.
And there's companies right now hiring for AI-focused positions. I'm consulting with a few different companies who are just coming to me saying, hey, I don't know where to even start. Can you help me put a strategy in place and figure out how to start using this?
Yeah.
Because based on the statistics, 50% of companies are looking at implementing some sort of AI in 2023.
Yeah.
So we're half
something,
all of them.
whether it's something CRM or something, they're trying to do something. So I guess that's a good, for that question, best piece of advice. So if you're a young person getting into your professional career and you don't know what you want to do, probably AI would be a good place to start.
It wouldn't be a bad place to start. Let's just say that. It's not going
Having
anywhere.
that in the back pocket is probably not a bad card to play.
It's definitely not. And I think especially, right now, it's not a field that is saturated.
Yeah.
There's not many people in that arena right now.
I think it's because people just don't get it. Like there's so few people who really understand it.
Yeah.
And I don't think like me, I would love to be in the AI field, figure out a way to, I think that's fun and creative way to try to be like, what can you come up with to?
Yeah. Well, it's difficult. It's hard to wrap your head around too, because like you'd asked earlier, hey, what's specific for the industrial industry can AI help with? And I was like, well, it depends. Like I give everyone a different piece of advice based on what they're doing, just because your AI strategy is so specific to what you're doing as an individual on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Right. So like I was putting together a talk for the real estate industry and how to use AI. And, I came across some tools on staging an empty room. So like I took a photo of an empty room, fed it into this program.
That's
and
a
it put
great
a bed
idea.
in there. It put a TV on the wall. It put a
Like
rug
made it
on the
look
carpet.
how you want.
So you could stage an
Could
entirely
you put
empty
like
house.
I want modern, I want rustic, I want, and to like make
Yep.
it look that way?
Of course. Why couldn't you?
Exactly. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I think, that to my point is like, some realtors may use that, but some real estate agents may not.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I think it just comes down to understanding what you do on a daily basis and either figuring out what that means for you and your company, or finding someone who can help you figure out what that means for you and your company.
Yeah. Yeah, because we were talking, and I could use what you use on a sales side, but
Yep.
how could an operations side of things, like guys back in the shop, could they use? You'd have to really dive into what they do every day and what. So I guess it really just, like you said, it depends.
Yeah, and like another example is I use a tool called Crystal Knows, which is a behavioral intelligence or behavioral insight tool. So basically, if you're familiar with DISC,
Yeah.
which is a personality assessment,
Yeah, I've done that
essentially
a couple
similar to
times, yeah.
Myers-Briggs, I can use someone's LinkedIn profile, and this tool will read their LinkedIn profile and predict their DISC to like an 80% accuracy, and it's pretty awesome, honestly. And it gives me insights that I've used to close some of the largest deals I've closed over the last year, and just insights that I don't have going into a cold
Yeah, like, all right, I don't need to like try to become friends with this guy. This guy just wants to hear the facts. Or like,
Yeah.
this guy wants to be taken to lunch and golf, and he wants to hang out and build a strong relationship. So you can kind of
Exactly.
scale how you don't want to waste this guy's time by trying to take him golfing if he's like, I don't
Right.
have any interest in that. I'm strictly busy. So I get, yeah.
But on another profile, it might say, spend 5 to 10 minutes in small talk and ask them how their day
Yeah.
was, because they want to have that connection. Whereas other people, and the different types of people, but sometimes it's harder to identify them from a human eye, or before you even meet
on the
them.
phone even.
Yeah,
If you have
exactly.
one call, it's hard to, being a sales guy, most people are standoffish on the first call anyway, so it could
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you never know.
But for me, I can use that because all my prospects have a LinkedIn.
Yeah.
In my last job, I was calling on maintenance managers and plant managers and things like that, and they didn't have LinkedIn's.
Yeah.
So that was a tool that I couldn't recommend to different industries, but that's just why it depends.
And there's since we've been talking, you've said about 5 different things that are just so like niched. Like
Right.
the meeting, interesting thing that I could use today is the meeting notes thing.
Yeah, that's a cool one. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that one's awesome.
Yeah.
The real estate staging thing. Real estate staging is almost how I was telling you about the racking thing. You could essentially take a picture of an empty warehouse and be like, what's a good
Yep.
layout here? How can we?
Yep.
And it could be like, well, you can go, 8 rows this way, 2 along the back, and have your dock doors here, or even like commercial builders. It could just, you could just go on forever. I guess there's
You
no
could.
really end. There's no limit to what these things can do.
Right. And that's kind of the scary part, and the exciting part is like it can really get woven into everything we do.
And you think, I think everyone talks, like my dad always says this, like, have these people not seen iRobot? He's
That's
like,
a good question.
he's like,
it's a good question.
These things are going to, my dad's old fashioned, but these things are going to take over. I'm like, I don't think they're going to, I guess they could, but I think we'll a long way before we have robots running the country.
Yeah, I would hope so. When I use ChatGPT, I am sure to say please and thank you just in case.
Just in case. Like,
anything
this guy was
happens.
nice.
Gotta
This
make
guy
sure
had
I'm on the
manners.
right team
Make
here.
sure you be nice to the AI because you never know.
Yeah, but again, I don't think, at least right now, that's a concern. Could it be in the future? I don't know.
I can see people
Maybe.
having like personal AI people at their house. Like, hey, will you mop all my floors and will you go do the dishes? And so that would be beneficial. Everyone had basically a
Yeah, I already know someone. This is a little bit unrelated, but I already know someone who has an AI bot. They have their person in a VR world in the metaverse somewhere, just walking around talking. It's not them; it's their voice, and it's using ChatGPT to kind of have conversations essentially. And they have the same thing set up to where you can.
What does that
message their
benefit?
WhatsApp.
Is that just like he's just doing it for?
I think he's
fun?
just trying to test it out and
To
kind of
see
see
what
how
it's
it
like.
works. He has another one where you can text his separate WhatsApp number and it will respond like it's him immediately, and it's ChatGPT doing it or some sort of AI.
That's crazy.
So yeah, it's
Stuff is
the limits
nuts.
Are
There's no
being
limits. I don't
pushed.
think. I don't
there's
think
not really any.
that's what you say in 5 years. Who knows? It could be crazy. It could be. airplanes flying. I mean, you never know. It could be crazy.
It could be very, very involved. And I mean, I think there is good reason to be, at least aware of the concerns and the watch outs. But, from my standpoint, I was like, I don't think there's much I can do to stop anything.
No, you
from
might as well
happening.
hop on the wagon.
The better I understand it and the better I know how to use it the right way, the ethical way, and the non-biased way, the better.
The better.
And that way I can at least use it to make better inputs, because I think there is a point where, you can't believe everything that comes out of it. You got to know what you can take and what you can't take.
Yeah.
So.
Cool, man. I feel like we could sit here probably for hours and do this, but.
You literally could. Yeah.
How long have we been doing this? About 30, 45 minutes. Right?
Yeah, about 40 probably we started.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, sure thing. We can continue this conversation.
If anybody
in 5
needs
years.
to find, we'll talk. Yeah, we'll be on the lookout for a follow up in 5 years if we're all still here.
Yep.
If someone wants to find you, I think you already said this, but Jordan Ledwine on LinkedIn.
Yep.
The AI
LEDWEIN is the last name. I have a newsletter on LinkedIn called the AI Sales Guide. It's probably easier to go to my LinkedIn page and find it from there.
Yes, I follow that, and I read those things. They're very informational in the AI world. So if you want to learn more about AIs, Jordan's the guy. So give him a follow. But yeah, man, again, I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for
All right,
having me
brother.
on.
See ya.
Yep.